Good morning everyone. Now we are going to discuss about fluid and electrolyte balance. In that, before going to the topic, now we are discuss the terminology. Total body water. Percentage of body composition consisting of water, approximately 60% of body weight and less in obesity persons and more in infants. Okay, and total body weight 60% and the water content in obesity persons is less and more in infants. And intracellular fluid volume. What is intracellular fluid volume? That part of the total body weight contained within the cells and 40% of body weight and 2 by thirds of total body weight. And the muscle cells contains 75% of water and fat cells have 5% of water. And what is extracellular fluid volume? That portion of the total body weight outside the cells, approximately 20% of body weight and 1 by third of total body weight, sustained osmotically mainly by sodium. Okay. And extracellular fluid volume means the fluid which present on inside, okay, which outside the compartment is known as extracellular fluid volume, and that portion of the total body weight outside the cells approximately 20% of body weight. Okay. And intracellular fluid volume 75% of water in muscle cells and 5% of water in fat cells. So we have to decrease the fat cells to reduce the fat content food. Okay. And after that, interstitial fluid volume, that portion of the ECF outside the circulation and surrounding the cells. And anabolism means synthesis of large molecules from small ones. That means proteins from amino acids and glycogen from glucose. Okay. Anabolism means synthesis of large molecules from small ones. And after that, catabolism. Catabolism means breakdown of large molecules into small ones and protein to amino acids or glycogen to glucose. Okay. And solution means fluid consisting of a solvent, example water, in which a soluble substance or solute, example sugar or salt, is dissolved. Sugar and salt are dissolved in water. So fluid consisting of a solvent, example water, in which a soluble substance or solute, example sugar or salt. This is called solution. And after that, crystalloid, a term used commonly to describe all clear glucose and or salt containing fluids for intravenous use. For example, 0.9% of saline and Hartmann solution and 5% of dextrose. These are all crystalloids. Okay. And the commonly to describe all clear glucose and or salt containing fluids for intravenous use. Okay. Crystalloid means it is used for in intravenous use. For example, 5% dextrose and 0.9% of sodium, saline. And colloid means starch or proteins, a fluid consisting of microscopic particles, for example starch or proteins, that is called colloids. Okay. And after that, balanced crystalloid means a crystalloid containing electrolytes in a concentration as close to as plasma as possible. For example, Ringer's lactate solution, Hartmann solution, plasma light 148 and stereofundin. Okay. These are the balanced crystalloids. And crystalloids are different to the balanced crystalloids. Crystalloids are 0.9% of saline and 5% of dextrose, and it is all clear glucose and or salt containing. And here a crystalloid containing electrolytes in a concentration, that is balanced crystalloids. For example, Ringer's lactate solution. And after that, osmosis. This describes the process by which water moves across a semi-permeable membrane and the permeable to water but not to the substances in solution. from a weaker to a stronger solution until the concentration of solutes are equal on the two sides. Okay, that means in osmosis, the process by which water moves across the semi-permeable, as we know that uh, semi-permeable membrane. Okay, in that semi-permeable membrane, the water across that and then permeable to water but not to the substances in solution, from a weaker to a stronger solution until the concentration of solutes are equal onto the two sides. And maintenance means provide daily physiological fluid and electrolyte requirements, and replacement provide maintenance requirements and add like replacement for ongoing fluid and electrolyte losses. And what is resuscitation? Administration of fluid and electrolytes to restore intravascular volume. Okay, this is all about the terminology: total body water and intracellular fluid volume, extracellular fluid volume, and interstitial fluid volume, anabolism, catabolism, solution, crystalloids, colloids, balanced crystalloids, and osmosis, maintenance, replacement, resuscitation. Okay, I'll give notes for this topic. And after that, fluid intake. Under normal circumstances, most of our fluid intake is oral. Okay, but remember that all food contains some water and electrolytes, and also that water and CO2 are end products of the oxidation of foodstuffs to produce energy. And this metabolic water is a small but significant contribution to net intake. Our drinking behavior is governed by the sensation of thirst, which is triggered whenever our water balance is negative through insufficient intake or increased loss. It may also be triggered by a high salt intake, which necessitates the intake and retention of extra water in order to maintain the extracellular fluid sodium concentration and osmolality in the normal range. And although in the elderly the thirst mechanism becomes blunted, it ensures on the whole that our intake matches the needs of bodily functions, maintaining a zero balance in which intake and output are equal and physiological osmolality. That means 280 to 290 uh, osmolality per kg is maintained. More than a century ago, Claude Bernard coined the term volume obligatory to describe the minimum volume of urine needed to excrete waste products, for example, urea. In order to prevent them accumulating in the blood, this concept implies that if sufficient fluid has been drunk or administered to balance insensible or other losses and to meet the kidney needs. If excessive intakes of fluid and electrolytes may be hazardous under certain circumstances, okay, and salt and water retention becomes clinically apparent in the form of edema. Okay, if the salt and water retention will be there, and this is in the form of edema when the extracellular fluid has been expanded by at least 2 to 3 liters. Okay, in introduction to achieve homeostasis. Homeostasis means equilibrium, the balance in the water concentration. The body maintains strict control of water and electrolyte distribution and of acid base balance. And this control is a function of a complex interplay of cellular membrane forces and specific organ activities and systemic and local hormone actions. Okay, and after that, there may be sources of water intake. In the total body weight in female, 45% of solids and 55% of fluids. And total body weight in male, 40% of solids and 60% of fluids. Okay. And water constitutes on average 50 to 70% of total body weight. If a person may have 68 kgs in the body weight, and the person in 68 kgs, the 70 percentage of total body weight will be water, and remaining 40 percentage there may be fat or else anything solids. And young male 60 percentage of total body weight, and older males 52 percentage of total body weight. Water concentration will be there in 52 percentage. And young females 50 percentage of total body weight is water, and older males 47 percentage. So now we have 50 percentage of water in our body weight. So you drink so much of water, it may be eliminate the waste products, okay, waste products from the body. For obese person, 25 to 30 percentage less body water than the lean people, okay. For obese person, they have water content in the body is low when compared to the lean people, okay. And infants 75 to 80 percentage, and gradual physiological loss of body water 65 percentage at 1 year of age, okay. And after that, sources of body fluids. Water is taken in form of three major sources. There are water in food and metabolic water, and drinking 1.5 additional liters. That means water in food 0.77 liters, and metabolic water in our body there may be produced during biochemical reactions in that 0.31, and drinking 1.5 additional liters. And water is the preferred drink to hydrate the body, and water is an essential nutrient for healthy hydration without bringing any other elements into the body. An overconsumption of sugar, sweetened beverages can lead to excessive calorie intake. So we have to decrease intake of the sugars and sweeteners, okay? Sweetened beverages, that means drinks and all, can lead to excessive calorie intake. Substitution of sugary beverages by water, one of the healthy habits which help to fight against overweight or obesity risk. In order to decrease that sugar beverages and sweetened beverages, and it is the one of the healthy habit, okay, and which help to fight against obese and overweight risk, okay. And after that, performed water represents about 2300 ml per day, okay. 2300 ml per day of daily intake. We have to take 2300 ml per day, okay. You must drink water 2.5 liters, okay. And metabolic water is produced through the catabolic breakdown of nutrients, and some water is responsible for the breakdown of the nutrients, and whatever the food we taken, that food will be with the help of water only, the food will break down. If our body have no water, there is the breakdown process will be in slow in condition. That's why the person may get more fat content in the body, because the metabolism is low, okay. And metabolic water is produced through the catabolic breakdown of nutrients occurring during cellular respiration. This amounts of about 200 ml per day. And combining performed and metabolic water gives us total daily intake of 2500 ml. In metabolism also there may be release of some water, okay. If we take any foods, that means sambar, like that, okay. In rice also there may be metabolism of that, what we have taken the food, that will be metabolism in our body. In that some water will be released per day, 200 ml per day, okay. 200 ml of water will be released from metabolism. So that also will include in our total body weight, okay. And in total intake water is 2500 ml. And water requirements of water vary with climate and dietary constitutions and activities and surface area of the body. As a rule, a person should take enough water to excrete about 1200 to 1500 ml of urine per day. Okay, if we take enough water to excrete about 1200 to 1500 of ml of urine per day. In tropics, because of greater water loss through perspiration increased, water intake is required to maintain urine volume. Normal intake of water ranges between 8 to 10 glasses per day. Okay, 8 to 10 glasses per day we have to drink water. 8 to 10 glasses per day, and healthy individual must take 8 to 10 glasses of water. And we should take solid foods and water intake through solid foods and metabolic water oxidation of carbohydrate, fats and proteins. As fluid drinks water, tea, coffee, milk and soup, and vomiting, breathing, respiration, perspiration and rectum defecation, lactating women, both kidneys and bladder, urination, wounds or burns, there may be water requirements in that persons. Okay, if the person may suffer with burns, they may have more water content because the water will be lost through a bubbles, air bubbles. In burns persons, you see the skin will be contract, and then there may be decrease of the fluid volume. Okay, so because of that only we have to administer the IV fluids to that person, because balance that fluid volume. Okay, and in lactating women also, because the lactation woman, they give breast milk to the baby, so in that conditions also they may be require of more amount of water. And vomiting, and after that breathing, respiration, perspiration, return defecation for defecation process, and both kidneys and bladder urination also, there may be requirement of water to our body. Okay, and as fluids, drink water, tea, coffee, milk and soup, and water intake through solid foods and metabolic water oxidation of carbohydrates, fats and proteins. Okay, these are the water requirements. As a rule, a person should take enough water to excrete about 1200 to 1500 ml of urine per day, and normal intake of water ranges between 8 to 10 glasses per day and healthy individual. Okay, these are the sources of water. And fluid compartments, approximately intracellular fluid, that means 62% of body weight constitute of intracellular fluid, and approximately 30% of the body's fluid is interstitial, and 8% of the body fluid is plasma. And daily water input, in tropical countries like India, the daily water input amounts 2400 to 3000 ml of water through food, as fluid drinks and as metabolic water. As fluid drinks water, tea, coffee, milk, soups 1500 to 1750 ml, and water intake through solid food 600 to 900 ml, and oxidation of carbohydrates, fats and proteins 300 to 350 ml, and total 2400 to 3000 ml. And daily input of water, urine, the kidney excretes 1200 to 1500 ml of urine. And in skin, perspiration, that means sweat, okay, excretes the skin. The main function of skin is perspiration. In that 700 to 900 ml they may be excrete. And in respiration for lung, inspiration and expiration 400 ml, and feces 100 to 200 ml. Okay, and total 2400 to 3000 ml of water. There may be output. Okay, this is output. Okay, daily output of water for urine 1200 to 1500, and for sweat 700 to 900 ml, and respiration 400 ml, and feces 100 to 200 ml. and totally 2400 to 3000 ml of water should be excreted outside the body, and therefore the water intake and output is fairly kept constant. This is called water balance, and the average adult metabolizes 2.5 to 3 liters of water, and a constant balance is maintained between intake and output. Inadequate water intake disturbs water equilibrium, resulting in decreased urinary output, thereby causing changes in extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. The water equilibrium is maintained by kidneys, lungs, intestines, and pituitary gland. And the water balance coordinates with both electrolyte and acid base balance. This is about the daily output of water. And after that, how to regulate the body fluids? As water moves through all parts of the body, it is constantly being lost, and fluid leaves the body through the kidneys, lungs, and skin and GI tract. Okay, how the body excrete that? Through kidneys, there may be urine, excrete urine through kidneys. 1200 to 1500 ml of urine may be excreted per day, and in lungs respiration, and in skin perspiration, and GI tract that may be feces. Okay, feces will be excreted. And to maintain homeostasis, the normal daily loss must be met by the normal daily intake. Homeostasis is a relatively constancy in the internal environments of the body and naturally maintained by adaptive responses and that promote healthy survival. An approximate daily water intake and output of an adult eating 2500 calories per day. Okay, an adult eating 2500 calories per day intake and output. Okay, and after that, this is intracellular compartment and interstitial compartment, and it is extracellular compartment, that is plasma. Okay, and after that, functions. Okay, what are the functions? All chemical reactions occur in liquid medium, and it is crucial in regulating chemical and bioelectrical distributions within the cells, and transport substances such as hormones and nutrients, and O2 transport from lungs to body cells, and CO2 transport in the opposite direction, and dilutes toxic substances and waste products and transport them to the kidneys and liver. Okay, and these are the fluid electrolyte balance should be the toxic substances and waste product transport them to the kidneys and to the liver, and the main water distributes heat around the body. Okay, and all chemical reactions occurs in the water only. Okay, and this water which will be regulating chemical and bioelectrical distributions within the cell, and the water transport substances such as hormones and nutrients to the body, and O2 transport from lungs to body cells through water only. Okay, and after that, till now we discuss about the introduction part and sources of body fluid and fluid intake, fluid compartments and its functions. And after that we see factors affecting fluid movement. Okay, what are the factors which are affected the fluid movement? Fluids in the body generally aren't found in pure forms. Isotonic, hypotonic and hypertonic types defined in terms of the amount of solute or dissolved substances in the solution. Balancing these fluids involves the shifting of fluid, not the solute involved. And after that, composition of body fluids. Composition of body fluids. Non-electrolytes include most organic molecules do not dissociate in water and carry no net electrical charge. Okay, Now, electrolytes dissociate in water to ions and include inorganic salts, acids and bases, and some proteins. And these non-electrolytes and electrolytes will be there. Okay, in electrolytes there may be dissociated in water to ions, and it includes inorganic salts, acids and bases, and some proteins. And non-electrolytes, they must most organic molecules they included in the non-electrolytes. And the major cation in extracellular fluids is sodium, and the major anion is chloride. Okay, cation is sodium and anion chloride. Sodium means how it is called cation. Sodium Na plus, and anion chloride Cl minus. Okay, Na plus and Cl minus. In intracellular fluid, the major cation is potassium, that means K plus, and anion is phosphate, P minus. Okay, the potassium which will be denoted with K plus, cation, that means cation means plus and anion means minus. Okay, and electrolytes are the most abundant solutes in body fluids, but proteins and some non-electrolytes account for 60 to 97% of dissolved solutes. Okay, the major cation in extracellular fluid is sodium, and chloride is anion. And intracellular fluid, the major cation is K plus, sodium, potassium, and then major anion is phosphate. Okay, and this is a composition of body fluids, and 60 to 97% of dissolved solutes. Some non-electrolytes account for 60 to 97% of dissolved solutes. This is about the composition of body fluids. And after that, what are the principles of body water distribution? And constant total body water, which regulates ingestion and excretion. Okay, and homeostatic mechanisms respond to changes in ECF. ECF means extracellular fluid, and no receptors direct monitor fluid or electrolyte balance and respond to changes in plasma volume or osmotic concentration. This is about principles of body water distribution. Okay, and balancing these fluids involves the shifting of fluid, not the solute involved. And what are the main functions? Chemical reactions occur in liquid medium, and it regulates chemical and bioelectrical distributions within the cells and transport substances such as hormones and nutrients. And it dilutes toxic substances and waste products and transport them to the kidneys and livers. Okay, and what are the fluid compartments? 62% of body fluid is useful in intracellular space, and 30% in interstitial, and 8% of the body fluid is plasma. And what are the sources of body fluids? And constitution, water constitutes an average 50 to 70% of body weight. And obese person, they may be decrease the amount of water content will be low than the lean people. Okay, this is about introduction part in fluid electrolyte balance. And after that, fluid movements, that means mechanisms controlling fluid and electrolyte movement, mainly simple diffusion and osmosis and facilitated diffusion, active transport. Okay, movement of body fluids through diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and filtration. Okay, we discuss one by one. There are many different processes which control the movement of fluid and electrolytes between the ICF and ECF spaces. ICF means intracellular fluid and ECF means extracellular fluid. And this process includes simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport, and osmosis and fluid presence. Okay, And there are the four: simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport, and osmosis. What is simple diffusion? The diffusion is defined as the natural tendency of a substance or solutes to move from an area of higher concentration to that of lower concentration. What is simple diffusion? The substance or solutes to move from an area of higher concentration to the lower concentration, and it occurs through the random movement of ions and molecules. Okay, and the movement will be occurs through ions and molecules, higher concentration to the lower concentration. That is simple diffusion, remember. And it occurs through the random movement of ions and molecules, and it occurs in liquids, gases, and solids. Okay, for example, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between pulmonary capillaries and alveoli. Net movement of the molecule stops when the concentrations are equal in both areas. Okay, when the concentration are equal in both areas, the net movement of the molecules will be stopped. The membrane separating the two areas must be permeable to the diffusing substances for the process to occur, and these molecules move without external energy, and diffusion is an efficient mechanism for the movement of molecules in and out of cells, and the diffusion does not require energy. Okay, and this diffusion does not require any energy to carry this diffusion. Okay, and diffusion is defined as it is a natural tendency of a substance or solutes to move from an area of higher concentration to that of lower concentration, and it occurs through the random movement of the ions and molecules, and it occurs in liquids, gases, and solids. Okay, and after that, and for example, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between pulmonary capillaries and alveoli. This is about simple diffusion. Diffusion is defined as the solutes to move from an area of higher concentration to an lower concentration. And what is facilitated diffusion? Here you see the molecules which are move from an area of higher concentration to the low fluid concentration. Okay, higher concentration to the low fluid concentration. And after that diffusion, that means facilitated diffusion. This is osmosis. In diffusion, high solute concentration to the low solute concentration. That means here solution will be more and here low, so the molecules will be shifted to the high to low. Okay, this is called diffusion. And after that, facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, some molecules diffuse slowly into the cell because of the composition of cellular membrane, and however, when they are combined with a specific carrier molecule, the rate of diffusion accelerates. Like simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion moves molecules from an area of high concentration to one of low concentration. And glucose transport and glucose transport like simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion moves molecules from an area of high concentration to the one of low concentration, and glucose transport into the cell is an example of the glucose transport into the cell, because the glucose is higher concentration and the cell low concentration. Here the energy will be produced to the cell, so that's why the high concentration to the low concentration. This is the main example of facilitated diffusion. The hormone insulin increases the rate of facilitated diffusion of glucose in most tissues. Okay. In facilitated diffusion, the same, the molecules moves from an higher concentration to the lower concentration like simple diffusion only. Okay, and in active transport, here active transport is a process in which molecules move in the absence of a favorable diffusion gradient, in which the physiologic pump that moves fluid from an area of low concentration to one of the higher concentration. Here, in active transport, the fluid moves from an low concentration to the high concentration. Okay, low concentration to the high concentration. External energy is required for this process. Here, there is required of energy. And in simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion, there is no need of energy, and the molecules may be moved from higher to lower. But here, the lower concentration to higher, in this, for this active transport, there may be need of certain energy. Okay, certain energy will be required for this transport of the molecules. And because molecules are being moved against a concentration gradient, active transport requires ATP for energy. And the energy production depends on oxygen and glucose availability. Depending upon the oxygen and glucose availability only, the energy will be used from this process. Okay, here ATP will release. That means this is lower concentration and this is higher concentration. And for lower concentration, there may be decrease of energy. Because of that only, the molecules will have more energy required to transport that molecules to the higher concentration. And the concentration of sodium and potassium differs greatly intracellularly and extracellularly by active transport. And the sodium moves out of the cell and potassium moves into the cell. The energy source for the sodium potassium pump is ATP, which is produced in the mitochondria, and by definition, active transport implies that energy expenditure must take place for the movement to occur against a concentration of gradient. Okay, and after that, osmosis is a special type of diffusion, is the flow of water between two compartments separated by a semi-permeable membrane. And here, this is membrane. The two compartments will be separated by a semi-permeable membrane, and here the fluid will be moves from low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration, and this process stops when the solute concentrations are equal on both sides. Okay, and here in lower solute, if for example in this lower solute compartment, the fluid must be in 50%, and here in low solute 30%, and high solute 70%. And this process stops when the solute concentrations are equal on both sides. Okay, that means the both sides will equal to the 50% of the molecules concentration, and after that the process will be stopped. Okay, and in this, the water moves from the compartments that is more dilute, has more water, to the side that is more concentrated, has less water. The semi-permeable membrane prevents movement of solute particles. Osmosis requires no outside energy sources and stops when concentration differences disappear. In addition to diffusion, osmosis is very important for maintaining the chemical stability of body cells. Okay, this is about the osmosis. In movement of body fluids, diffusion, osmosis, active transport, and filtration. In diffusion, there may be the molecules moves from an higher solute concentration to the low solute concentration, and in osmosis low to high through via a semi-permeable membrane. And active transport, there is required of some energy for movement of these molecules from higher to lower. Okay, from lower solution to the higher solution. Okay, in active transport there is required of some energy, that is in the form of ATP. Okay, adenine triphosphate. And after that, filtration is the transport of water and dissolved materials through a membrane from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. Okay, and it is the high pressure to the low pressure. This is about mechanisms controlling fluid and electrolyte movement: simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion, active transport, and osmosis and filtration. Okay, and what is absorption? What is absorption? It usually refers to the initial movement of substances such as end products of digestion or medications from organs such as GI tract or tissues such as the muscle, subcutaneous or dermal tissue, buccal or pharyngeal tissues into the vascular system. What is reabsorption? It refers to movement of water and electrolytes, vitamins, amino acids, glucose, lactate or other essential substances from one compartment such as the interstitial or renal tubules back into vascular capillaries. And resorption, it refers to the process of calcium salts leaving the bone and moving to the blood in an form. Okay, that is resorption. Reabsorption, absorption, and resorption. Here absorption, the end products of digestion of medications from organ such as GI tract or tissues such as muscle, subcutaneous and dermal tissue into the vascular system. And reabsorption, movement of water and electrolytes, vitamins, amino acids, glucose are the essential substances from one compartment such as the interstitial or renal tubules back into the vascular capillaries. This is about reabsorption. Okay. Okay. Here fluid balance, that means water, 2 liters of water per day are generally sufficient for adults. For adults there may be 2 liters of water will be sufficient for adults, and most of this minimum intake is usually derived from the water content of food and water of oxygenation. Therefore it has been estimated that only 500 ml of water needs be imbibed given normal diet and no increased losses. And these sources of water are markedly reduced in patients who are not eating, and so much must be replaced by maintenance of fluids. And who are not eating, the patients must be reduce the water content in their body, so that must be replaced by maintenance of fluids. Okay, this is about the mechanisms and fluid and electrolyte balance introduction, sources of water intake and fluid intake, and physiology of body fluids, and factors affecting fluid movement. Okay, this is about introduction part in fluid and electrolyte balance. In after classes we learned about the regulation of the fluid and electrolytes and water requirements. Okay, thank you everyone.